Today at 6, the Health Secretary apologises after pictures emerge of him kissing and embracing a colleague in breach of COVID guidance. Matt Hancock says he's let people down and is very sorry after the images showed him with Gina Coladangelo. Seen here with the aide, Mr. Hancock still has the support of the Prime Minister, but Labour says he should be sacked.
Unfortunately, this saga does seem yet again to indicate that there's one rule for the Conservatives and another rule for everybody else.
There are questions about how Mrs. Coladangelo was appointed to the board of the Department of Health, also on the programme. Football stadiums are now vaccine centres as more drop-in sites are added to beat COVID. After the Miami apartment block collapse, 4 people are confirmed dead, but more than 150 are still missing. At least 140,000 years old is this the skull of a new species of ancient human. And together, stronger, Wales's footballers and their fans prepare for the Euros clash against Denmark.
And coming up in sport on the BBC News Channel, disappointment for the defending women's champion Simona Halep, who's forced to pull out of Wimbledon because of a calf injury.
Good evening. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has been forced to apologise after pictures have emerged of him kissing a colleague in breach of social distancing guidelines. He says he's let people down and is very sorry after the Sun newspaper published images of him and his aide, Gina Coladangelo, embracing in the Department of Health. Boris Johnson is standing by his Health Secretary, saying he considers the matter closed, but Labour is calling on Mr. Hancock to resign. And there are more questions this evening about how Mrs. Coladangelo, initially hired by Mr. Hancock himself, was then appointed last September to her current position on the board of the Department of Health. Well, our deputy political editor, Vicky Young, is at Westminster for us this evening. Vicky.
Well, Clive, Matt Hancock has become one of the most prominent politicians in the government during this pandemic, frequently making the case for severe restrictions on all our lives. He's been leading the fight against COVID, and of course it has been a tough job. Even the Queen last week referred to him as that poor man. But many won't have much sympathy for him tonight after it's been revealed that he broke the guidelines he helped draw up. He told all of us to stick to COVID rules, but now Matt Hancock's admitted breaking them after getting too close to this advisor. The Sun reported that these pictures of Mr. Hancock and Gina Coladangelo, who are both married, had been taken inside the Department of Health in early May. In a statement, the Health Secretary said, "I accept that I breached the social distancing guidance in these circumstances. I have let people down and am very sorry. I remain focused on working to get the country out of this pandemic and would be grateful for privacy for my family on this personal matter." Mr. Hancock and Miss Coladangelo have been close friends since university. During the pandemic, she's accompanied the Health Secretary to meetings in Downing Street and interviews. Speaking to Radio 4 last year, she talked about first meeting him.
We met at the student radio station, Oxygen FM. I read the news and Matt read the sport. I've always joked with him that he did the sport because he wasn't good enough to do the news. But I think it gave him a bit of an early heads up into aggressive questioning from journalists and hacks.
In September, she became a non-executive director on the board of the Department of Health with a salary of £15,000. Downing Street say the appointment followed correct procedure. But Labour's calling for an official investigation into whether the ministerial code of conduct has been broken.
Matt Hancock either needs to resign, or if he's not willing to do that, then the Prime Minister must remove him from his post. This isn't just a question of yet again a Conservative MP disobeying those rules and thinking that they only apply to the rest of us. It's a case where we've seen cronyism on cronyism.
So far, though, ministers and Downing Street are offering support.
I think the Secretary of State has said everything he needs to say on this. He's apologised, and the Prime Minister is backing his Secretary of State and considers the matter closed.
This comes after other high-profile breaches of the rules. Dominic Cummings, who used to be Boris Johnson's top advisor, caused outrage when he travelled hundreds of miles during lockdown. And Professor Neil Ferguson, one of the most prominent scientists advising the government, resigned after his married lover visited his home. This was Mr Hancock's reaction at the time.
I don't understand.
Sounds speechless.
I am. That doesn't often happen to me. I think that he took the right decision.
You wouldn't have...
To resign, that is.
Yeah, you wouldn't have fought to keep him.
That's just not possible in these circumstances.
But Mr Hancock hopes he can stay in his job, and the Prime Minister is showing no sign of sacking him.
Indeed, Vicky, Boris Johnson says the matter is over, but could that be wishful thinking?
Yeah, I remember when Dominic Cummings broke those rules. Conservative MPs say they were bombarded with messages from their constituents, thousands in some cases to individual MPs, because the public were absolutely furious at the hypocrisy. And I think that is the most damaging thing here, not just for Matt Hancock, but for the government more widely. That idea that they're somehow above the rules, that there's one rule for them, but they expect all of us to carry on living by them. So there's no doubt that Matt Hancock's credibility, his authority has been damaged. But just look at Boris Johnson's behaviour in the past. When ministers have done things wrong, he's been incredibly reluctant to sack them. He has stuck by them. And so far, it does seem that he's going to do the same with Mr Hancock. Now, of course, we don't know whether there will be any more revelations. If anything else comes to light, then that could change things. But at the moment, looking at the pattern of behaviour from the Prime Minister in the past, it seems like Mr Hancock will stay in his job, at least for now.
OK, Vicky, thank you. Vicky Young there at Westminster. Cases of the Delta variant of COVID-19, first identified in India, have risen 46% in a week across the UK. The latest figures from Public Health England show the variant now accounts for 95% of new cases. The drive to get more people vaccinated is being stepped up this weekend, with hundreds of drop-in sites, including football stadiums, theatres and shopping centres, open to all adults in England. Our health editor Hugh Pym has the very latest.
Walk-in vaccinations and no need to book for all aged 18 and over. That's the attraction at Arsenal's Emirates Stadium and other venues in England from today. What's been billed as a race to the finish by NHS leaders, with the aim of offering all adults a first jab by July the 19th.
In the beginning, there's like the whole rumours, is it safe, what's in the vaccine? But I think the more people get it, the confidence grows.
And also being like Arsenal supporters,
it does help.
You get to see the stadium.
Free tour, why not? If everyone gets it, or at least most of the people, it'll be safer for everyone and we can have a normal life again.
At this site, first doses are being offered to walk-ins. Others are providing the second dose as well to those eligible. And officials monitoring the spread of the virus say it's important to get both doses to get maximum possible protection. The Office for National Statistics survey estimates the number of weekly cases and isn't affected by temporary surge testing. There was an increase from the middle of May, though it's still well short of the peak in January. The ONS says 1 in 440 people in England had the virus last week. In Scotland, it was 1 in 220, in both cases with increases on the previous week. In Wales, with 1 in 830, and Northern Ireland with 1 in 720. The trend was said to be uncertain. High case rates have been seen in some communities of the northwest of England, like Blackburn. They've been driven by the Delta variant first identified in India. But officials and experts argue that vaccines have at least reduced the risk of becoming seriously ill.
It's dominant. It is causing a lot of infections. We've seen infections rising. And we also see, though, on the plus side, that the vaccines are still effective in the face of this variant, both in relation to hospitalisation and also deaths.
Much still depends on testing and tracing. After poor performance, including long waits, the system in England was criticised by the spending watchdog last year. In a new report, there are still said to be pressing challenges, though overall performance against targets has improved. Testing played a key part in assessing risks at pilot events like the FA Cup final. Out of 58,000 spectators at 9 venues, just 28 cases were later identified. Ministers say more trials, including at Wimbledon, will now take place. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Well, the latest government figures show there were 18 deaths reported due to COVID in the last 24-hour period, and there were 15,810 new infections. That means, on average, there were 12,930 new cases per day in the last week. More than 221,000 people received the first dose of a vaccine, meaning over 43.8 million people now have had a single jab, nearly 83.3% of adults in the UK. The number of people who've had their second dose in the latest 24-hour period is over 177,000, taking the overall total to more than 32 million. That's 60.9% of adults in the UK. Airlines and holiday companies say they're disappointed and frustrated more countries weren't added to the travel green list announced by the government yesterday. Malta, Madeira and Spain's Balearic Islands were included, meaning those returning to the UK from those destinations don't have to quarantine. But they're also on the so-called green watch list, meaning they could turn amber at short notice. Here's Caroline Davis.
The promise of sunshine and sea has already persuaded some UK travellers to book. The green list may be the longest it's been so far, but it's not going to be enough to revive Carolyn's travel agency in Bristol.
It's not going to bring a flood of bookings. We have many customers who are utterly frustrated with the whole system. They've rebooked 4, 5, some of them even 6 times now, and they want clarity. They want to know that they can go on holiday and relax on that sun lounger and not be constantly checking the news for, is there going to be an update? Am I going to have to bolt home because I can't quarantine?
Jet2 will start flying again from the 1st of July. Like other bigger operators, they say they've already seen a surge in bookings.
It's very clear from the numbers so far that people are desperate to get away, particularly for the first 2 weeks in July. People want to relax and have their bit of sunshine.
But they want to know more about when quarantine will be removed for fully vaccinated travellers from amber countries.
Well, the 30th of October is before the end of summer, and that's a long, long way away. So we need some clarity.
That's on hold for a while, according to the Transport Secretary.
One of the biggest things is just giving everybody the opportunity to have had the second vaccination. The Joint Committee on Vaccines and Immunisation has yet to opine on whether children should be given the vaccination or not, and we're waiting for the scientific advice on that. Then there's the issue of how do you prove that somebody's got a vaccine. The point is there's still quite a lot of things that we need to do before we're ready to introduce that system.
And being green doesn't guarantee UK visitors will be let in. Today, Malta, the only green country edition not on the watch list, announced that all UK arrivals will need to present a vaccine certificate or have to quarantine. Some other countries on the green list aren't open at all. Lynn hasn't seen her grandchildren who live in the Cayman Islands in 2 years. It's now green, but the island has closed its airports to passengers.
To hear their little voices, how sad they are, it's heartbreaking. I felt it was a step closer and spoke to my daughter in Cayman, all happy, saying, yeah, you've gone on the... And she said, it's not going to make any difference, Mum. We feel completely cut off.
The green list will give some a chance to get away, with maybe a glimmer of sunshine, but much of the world is still out of reach. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
Nearly 160 people are still unaccounted for after the collapse of an apartment building in Miami. 4 deaths have been confirmed so far. What caused the collapse remains unclear, but the building was undergoing repair work. Well, our correspondent Will Grant is in Miami for us this evening. Will.
Clive, the rescue teams carrying out this relentless operation to find survivors in the rubble say they'll carry on for as long as it takes, even if it must be done brick by brick. But with no positive developments now for many hours, even the family members watching on are beginning to find it hard to keep the faith. And just a warning that my report does contain images of the moment of the building's collapse.
As the desperate search for survivors at the collapsed apartment block entered its second day, the full gravity of the situation was laid bare. The exact number of those lost in this tragic incident still isn't known, but it's clear this has the potential to be the most deadly building collapse in Florida's history. The awful moment itself happened so fast it took everything, and it is feared everyone with it. 12 stories and entire lives reduced to rubble in seconds. The methodical work of the rescue teams hasn't stopped since then. They say they're still hearing occasional knocks from inside the debris and are following every lead. At one stage trying to enter the spaces between the rubble via the basement. Family members are gathered at a community centre as their unbearable wait for information goes on. Magali Ramsey's mother lived on the 9th floor. She described the tension inside the family centre.
It's silent, it's sad, it's aggravating. You know, I think that's about sums it up. There's hope, there's lots of hope, but, you know, what can you say?
Her mother, also called Magali, is one of the oldest of those missing. The youngest was Ashani Patel, the 1-year-old daughter of joint British-American citizen Bhavna Patel, who was pregnant, and her husband Vishal, an entire family missing. But the city will keep up the search, the mayor promised.
We will continue search and rescue because we still have hope that we will find people alive. That is exactly why we're continuing, and that is why we're using our dogs and our sonar and our cameras, everything possible, to seek places where there may still be people.
As the rescue effort continues, hopes are beginning to fade. For the family members, this initial period has been one of shock and a desperate wait for information. Now, though, many are beginning to face up to the possibility that they may not see their missing loved ones again.
Magali Ramsey is one person facing that gut-wrenching reality.
The choices you hold on to are like either that there's a miracle with God's grace, and he does have lots of miracles in store for us, or God's grace was one that, you know, she didn't feel a thing, and she's in his hands and his arms right now in a good place.
Will Grant, BBC News, Miami.
The time is now 16 minutes past 6. Our top story this evening. The Health Secretary apologises after pictures emerge of him kissing and embracing a colleague in breach of COVID guidance.
And Wales prepared to take on Denmark without most of their fans in the first knockout game of Euro 2020.
And coming up on Sports Day on the BBC News Channel, tonight is his last chance to make it to Tokyo. Mo Farah prepares for one final attempt to qualify for the Olympics and defend his 10,000 metres title.
A remarkable scientific discovery has been made in China. Researchers have found the skull of what they believe is a new species of ancient human that could be our closest evolutionary relative. If confirmed, Dragon Man, as he's been nicknamed, would displace the Neanderthals as our sister species. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh has the full story.
Meet the Dragon Man, a perfectly preserved skull found in the Black Dragon River province in northeastern China. He's thought to be a new species of human that lived 146,000 years ago. A 3D scan shows a huge head with a brain that was about the same size as ours, but other features such as a prominent brow ridge suggest something more primitive.
I said, oh my gosh, you can't believe that, you know. So, and it is so well preserved. You can see all the details.
And this is what the researchers think he looked like, stocky and powerfully built. So where does Dragon Man fit into the new human family tree? Well, 7 million years ago, the first human-like creatures emerged. They became progressively more developed until 2 million years ago, our ancient ancestor Homo erectus emerged. That led to our close cousins, the Neanderthals, and us, and we coexisted a few 100,000 years ago. Dragon Man, it's claimed, is a new species that lived alongside us. Not only that, it's more closely related to us.
I've been studying human evolution, for the last 50 years or so, and this for me is one of the most significant fossils that I have seen and studied in all of that time. And it really gives us a new view of human evolution because it looks like, on our analyses, this is a sister species to Homo sapiens, our own species.
Some experts believe that the new species might belong to a mysterious branch of humans called the Denisovans. All we know about them is from a handful of human fossils.
We've had indications that they existed
And then they found more in a jaw from Tibet, suggesting that that jaw may have been Denisovans. But now, because this jaw from Tibet and Dragon Man look like each other, now we may actually have the first face of the Denisovans.
These earlier skulls, found in China, have baffled scientists until now. The new human, they say, was the last in line in the evolution of long-lost ancient relatives in Asia that we've only just found out about. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Let's take a look at some of the day's other top stories now. And the parole board's decision to allow the release of Colin Pitchfork, who raped and murdered 2 schoolgirls in the 1980s, is to be challenged by the Ministry of Justice. Pitchfork was deemed suitable for release at a parole board hearing in March. The organisers of the music festival Latitude, due to take place in Suffolk next month, say it'll be a government COVID test event for mass gatherings. That means the festival will be run at full capacity, around 40,000 people. But those attending will have to provide a negative lateral flow test or prove they've been double jabbed. The government says so far there have been no substantial outbreaks of COVID-19 after previous mass gatherings tests. 4 men have appeared at the Old Bailey charged with conspiracy to murder the black rights activist Sasha Johnson. The 27-year-old remains in a critical condition in hospital after being shot in the back garden of a house in Peckham in South London last month. Cameron Derriggs and Devontae Brown, who were both 18, Troy Reed, who's 19, and Prince Dixon, who's 25, were all remanded in custody. And a freak tornado which hit the Czech Republic has killed at least 5 people and injured hundreds of others. Towns and villages were hit by winds of more than 200 miles an hour along the Slovak and Austrian borders. Thousands of homes are reported to have been destroyed. Now, in the next few hours, a judge in the US city of Minneapolis is expected to sentence the former police officer Derek Chauvin over the murder of George Floyd. The 46-year-old African-American died in May last year after Chauvin knelt on his neck for more than 9 minutes. Well, our correspondent Neda Tawfiq is in Minneapolis for us this evening. Neda, the prosecution want 30 years for Chauvin. The defense want probation. That's a huge disconnect.
Absolutely, Clive, and I'm told by legal experts that probation is highly unlikely. You know, it's worth noting that Derek Chauvin has never expressed remorse, which can affect sentencing. Instead, his defense lawyers have said that he wasn't aware he was committing a crime and that he thought he was assisting the other officers. So today, many will be waiting to see if he does in fact apologize without accepting guilt to Mr. Floyd's family. But the judge has had months to think this over. He knows this is a defining moment for America, and he's already said he will consider several factors. First, that Derek Chauvin abused his position of trust and authority, that he treated George Floyd with particular cruelty, and that he did it in front of children who will be traumatized for the rest of their lives. Now, I'm told by one criminal defense attorney here that the number to watch is 25 years for the sentencing. He says that would be the equivalent of the judge sentencing Chauvin to the equivalent of him holding a gun and shooting George Floyd point blank. Now, that would go above the sentencing guidelines for someone who is charged of second-degree murder, as Chauvin is. So that would set a huge precedent for police accountability. You know, I've spoken to the Floyd family. They say his conviction really showed the liberation of Black America. Now they just hope the punishment fits the crime.
Okay, Neda, thank you for that. Neda Tawfiq there, live in Minneapolis. Some news just in from Germany, and police say there are a number of people dead and injured after a stabbing attack in a city in Bavaria. It took place in Würzburg in the south of the country. A suspect has been shot and injured during an arrest, and officers say there is now no further risk to the public. A sudden third wave of coronavirus has hit St. Petersburg, with case numbers reaching record highs. But the Russian city is due to host one of the Euro 2020 football quarter-finals in a week's time, and some are calling for a full lockdown. Here's Sarah Rainsford.
They're partying like there's no pandemic in St. Petersburg. The city is hosting the Euros, welcoming football fans to town in their thousands.
I forgot about COVID-19 when I was here, actually. So, yeah. Just follow the rules and I think we're fine.
All this as officials call the infection rate explosive and even talk openly now about the record number of deaths.
Just look at this place. It is packed out, and it's the same all the way up the street. And yet this is the city right in the midst of a COVID crisis.
There's been no lockdown here in over a year. COVID was supposedly under control. But outside a city hospital, we found ambulances waiting at least 3 hours under a sweltering sun.
Здесь давно?
The more infectious Delta variant, as it's known, is spreading fast. And in Russia, just 11% of people have been fully vaccinated.
Спасибо вам. This lady just said to me, if she hadn't been vaccinated, she thinks she would have died. She says she's got double pneumonia now, and that's after having been vaccinated back in January.
There's no beds anywhere now. Everywhere's full. There's more people getting sick. We need a strict lockdown. Maybe they'll bring it in when the football's over. But for now, I don't see them doing anything.
What they are doing is pushing people to get protected. From teachers to train drivers, many now have to get a COVID jab or lose their job. Russia calls its Sputnik vaccine world-beating, but many people are sceptical.
Trust in the authorities has been undermined for many years. And if you look at how few people are getting vaccinated, that's dangerous, especially now there's a third wave of COVID.
The reminders are all around. Russia has been playing down this pandemic for so long, it's struggling to convince people now of the danger. Sarah Rainford, BBC News, St. Petersburg.
And the Welsh team is gearing up for its round of 16 match against Denmark at the Euros in Amsterdam. Welsh fans can't travel to the Netherlands due to COVID restrictions, but it's an exciting time for those already living there. And Howell Griffith is in Amsterdam for us this evening. Hi there, Howell.
Clive, yes, on this latest stop in Wales's transcontinental journey in this tournament, they've swapped Italian sunshine for some Dutch drizzle. As you say, it may only be a handful of fans in the Johan Cruyff Stadium tomorrow because of the pandemic rules, but those who live here say they're prepared to be there to cheer on their team.
Their team motto is together stronger. In this tournament, Welsh resilience has won them a place in the next round. But is it enough? The man who's led them this far thinks not.
Knowing the players, knowing myself, knowing the staff, we want more. We're greedy. We want to continue this journey. We're loving it. We've been away from home a long time, and for the sacrifices the staff and all the boys have made, we want to make it worthwhile. So we want to continue this journey now.
Pubs and bars up and down Wales are preparing for thousands of socially distanced supporters. Many of them frustrated fans told not to travel to the Netherlands because of the pandemic. That leaves a lucky few already in the EU, like these teachers from The Hague's International School. They feel a sense of duty to be the bricks in a diminished red wall.
I heard the call. I feel like I have to be there with my red shirt on, flag, or whatever else I could bring, making as much noise as possible. We'll be in few in numbers, but we'll be loud and we'll be behind the boys to the end, and I think, we'll do them proud and we'll do the people at home proud.
We have got a chance. I think it's going to be a tight game. They're very similar to us. I hope we're going to nick it 1-0, but I have this horrible pit in the bottom of my stomach that says we're going to go to penalties, and I'm not sure I'm emotionally ready for that.
There are other storylines at play. Kasper Schmeichel of Leicester and Denmark will face his deputy, Danny Ward of Leicester and Wales. A tale of two club keepers vying to be number one. So how do Wales win it?
It's knockout football now. Denmark and Wales, well, you wouldn't say there's a lot between them. So I think Wales have come out a lot more attack-minded, as we've seen in the Turkey game. Everybody knows, if Bale's on song, Rambo's on song, then Wales tend to do well.
If Ramsey, Bale and co can reproduce their finest form tomorrow, a win would send Wales back to back.
Drizzly in Amsterdam. What's the weather picture like here? Sarah Keith Lucas has the details. Hi there.
Hi there, Clive. It's been a really mixed sort of day out there today. Some of us kept the cloud all day with outbreaks of rain. Other areas saw the sunshine breaking through. This was the view, the skies above the Isle of Wight a little bit earlier on, some blue sky around there. But many of us have had the cloud and the outbreaks of rain, and we've actually seen some fairly heavy downpours over the past couple of hours. So this slow-moving weather front produced rain across parts of northern England into Wales too. And for the likes of East Wales, for Powys, for instance, into Shropshire, some heavy showers and some thunderstorms. And we've also got some thunderstorms just around the coast of Essex at the moment too. So if you do catch some of those really heavy downpours, you could well see some localised flooding over the next couple of hours. But through the weekend, it's a mix of some sunshine, a few showers on Saturday, a bit more persistent rain in the south by the time we get to Sunday. But for the here and now, then, these heavy downpours are going to be easing away through this evening and tonight gradually. Still a bit of drizzly rain and low cloud around across parts of southern Scotland, northern England into Wales as well. But temperatures just about remaining in double figures for most of us heading on into Saturday morning. Now through Saturday, we've still got this slow moving area of low pressure that brought us the cloud and rain today. Not a particularly active weather front, but it is bringing quite a bit of cloud, some mist and some fog around, tending to brighten up through the day for most of us, particularly across England and Wales. But in the sunshine, you could well see a few more of those sharp showers sparking off during the afternoon. 22 degrees or so for London, still quite cool for Scotland and for Northern Ireland, with temperatures typically in the mid-teens. Now into Sunday, a bit of uncertainty about the exact detail, but it does look like we're going to see a front pushing some outbreaks of rain across parts of southern England on Sunday. Further north, you've got a better sort of day with some sunshine and those temperatures tending to rise a little bit. 21 degrees or so for Glasgow. Clive.
OK, Sarah, thank you for that. And that's it. So goodbye from me. Now on BBC One, time for the news where you are. Have a very good evening.